The moment my sister announced her wedding date, the exact day as mine, the words sliced through the table with the precision of a knife finding an old wound. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then our parents laughed, as if betrayal could be charming when wrapped in Emily's golden glow. Candlelight danced along her hair, gilding her like some favoured idol. I kept my fingers still around the cool rim of my glass, anchoring myself as her voice drifted across the table, soft, airy, hiding that familiar sting. "You're fine with that, right?" A question disguised as mercy. A verdict disguised as a choice. I nodded once. Of course. They mistook my quiet for surrender, the way they always had. None of them noticed the guest list already waiting in my planner, every name chosen with a precision sharpened by years of silent grievances. In 2 months, this same table would go quiet, for reasons none of them could imagine. The first time I learned silence could shield me. I was 8. Emily stood on the front steps of our house on Rue Ardent, her dress catching the morning sun, while Mom adjusted every perfect strand of hair for a small-town ad shoot. "Wider, honey," she said, warmth in her tone, worship in her eyes. Behind them, I clutched the lunchbox I'd packed alone, waiting for someone to glance back. No one did. School became my battleground. I earned space with grades, with order, with effort so careful it bordered on prayer. When I brought home a test marked 100, Dad barely lifted his eyes from the harbour ledger. "Don't make your sister feel bad." His voice was dull, but the dismissal struck clean, turning pride into something small enough to fold. So I folded it, like everything else, slipping the paper into my drawer, smoothing its edges until there was no evidence of the sting. By 13, even my birthday cake carried her name. "We thought it'd be fun to celebrate together," Mum said. Emily blew out every candle before I could reach one. I clapped anyway, palms stinging with each forced cheer. Dad worked long hours at an insurance firm in the centre of Le Marin. He returned home smelling of ink and exhausted expectations, and he liked that I kept the house running. The dishes, the bills, the quiet. "You're reliable," he'd say. It was never affection. It was utility. In high school, I confessed a crush once, just once, while braiding Emily's hair. She smiled at her reflection, a slow, knowing curve, and went out with him the next week. When I cried, Mum didn't even look up. "Don't be dramatic. He prefers pretty girls." That night, I learned to guard anything fragile. College was dismissed with a single sentence. "Emily needs the tuition more," Dad said. So I took a job at a grey-walled office in the industrial district, typing invoices beneath the drone of flickering lights. Mr. Gary, my old teacher, helped me apply. "You're sharp, William. Don't let them make you small." But smallness felt safe, controlled. At 22, I moved into a one-bedroom overlooking the old canals of Mirabel. White walls, slow clock, shelves lined with colour-coded files. Order soothed me. I rose early, brewed coffee, checked my planner, the one place nothing shifted unless I allowed it. Memory was unreliable. Ink was not. Sometimes Emily called to parade her newest victory. A car, a dress, a handful of followers who worshipped her curated life. "She's doing so well," Mum said once. "You could learn from her." I nodded. Silence preserved the fragile peace. But beneath that quiet, something gathered, steady, sharp, deliberate. The folded papers of childhood became lists, receipts, proof. A record of wrongs waiting, patient as a heartbeat. That's when I understood. Silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. The call came on a Tuesday night as rain tapped against the window. I was updating the guest list, pen poised above a name I hadn't yet decided to include. Emily's name lit the screen. I nearly let it ring out. "Hey," she chirped too brightly. "Funny thing, my wedding date just got confirmed. It's actually the same day as yours." For a moment, all I heard was the clock's measured ticking. "The same day," I repeated. "Yeah, but you're doing something small, right? Just family." A light laugh, a blade wrapped in silk. "Our relatives will be at mine, obviously. I mean, it just makes sense." Her words trailed off, waiting for my compliance. "William, You're okay with that, right? I stared at the small ink circle marking my date. My pen was still touching the page, pressing down until the mark deepened, until it bled. Yes, I said at last. I'm okay with it. When the call ended, I stayed in the dark, listening to the rain gather along the window. My reflection in the glass looked calm, almost detached, but my fingers had gone cold around the pen, the first shiver of something long buried beginning to rise. That night, my phone rang again. Mum didn't waste time. Emily's venue is much larger, she announced as if sharing good news. Everyone will be there. Yours can be quieter. Maybe start after hers finishes. From the background came Dad's usual monotone. Be supportive, William. It's her big day. I repeated the familiar script. Of course. When the call ended, I opened my planner beneath the pale circle of the desk lamp. 2 dates stared back at me, twin rings drawn in ink, hers and mine. I added a note beside mine, small but immovable. Confirmed. Do not move. They'd insist it was coincidence. They'd say I agreed. But I'd learned long ago how they preferred me. Soft-edged, quiet, a shadow beside their favoured daughter. Not this time. If Emily wanted the sun, she would have to share its heat. The next morning, I woke before the alarm, the apartment holding that peculiar hush that feels like a held breath. My coffee fogged the window, muting the Chicago skyline into pale smudges. I opened my planner and rested a fingertip on the word confirmed. The ink was cool, settled, certain. At 8, I stepped into the office I had spent 9 years navigating like a ghost, someone who could make entire systems move without anyone noticing the hands behind them. While co-workers traded idle talk about brunches and half-finished projects, I logged into the HR portal and drafted an internal memo. Attendance requested for the Reed wedding. I saved it, unsent, the cursor pulsing like a quiet warning. By midday, I was on the phone with the event coordinator. Yes, I said, our date stays. A pause. But the other family... I'm sure, I interrupted, soft but absolute. And we'll take the grand ballroom. Certainly, Ms. Reed. That evening, I told Kathleen. He listened in thoughtful silence before asking, You're really keeping the date? Yes. He absorbed the answer with a single slow nod. Then we'll do it right. Proper scale, proper design, proper sound. A faint smile tugged at me. Proper silence, proper control. What followed was a week of movements as precise as clockwork. Click. Finalizing the HR memo. Swipe. Marking executives' RSVPs. Print. Envelopes sealed with gold wax. Confirm. Payments for ballroom, catering, musicians. Each action clean, intentional. Silence wasn't passivity. Silence was command. Midway through the week, Mum called again. Emily's reception will be beautiful, she said. You'll help set up, right? I glanced at the stack of invoices on my desk. I'll be busy that day. Busy? But it's her wedding. Yes, I replied quietly. It is. The shift in my tone passed over her like smoke. Every night, I laid our plans across the dining table, the seating chart, the lists, the schedule. Kathleen reviewed them with me, steady, focused. You're sure this isn't going too far? He asked once. It's not enough, I murmured. His smile was slow, almost reverent. Then we'll push it further. A week later, we toured the venue. The grand ballroom stretched before us, chandeliers scattering cold, crystalline light. It's beautiful, I told the manager, but I want restraint, nothing gaudy. Understood, ma'am. I ran my hand along the ivory drapes, thick enough to soften every echo. No unnecessary decor. I want the quiet to feel deliberate. The staff exchanged uncertain looks. Kathleen didn't. He saw exactly what I was building. Night after night, I refined the details. Guest lists, seating for Kathleen's father, parking arrangements, musician schedules. Each addition to my list meant fewer guests drifting toward Emily's orbit. She and Stephanie had booked the same venue complex, 2 halls on the same floor. She believed proximity would diminish me, press me back into the shadows where I used to live. But Shadows only exist where something stands tall enough to cast them. When the final HR confirmation arrived, attendance mandatory for upper management, I read it twice, savouring the neat finality of the words. Then archived it without a sound, feeling the quiet shift into something sharp and unstoppable. One evening, while sorting through the closet, my hand brushed against an old cardboard box. Inside, buried under loose papers and forgotten notebooks, I found the test I had once folded into secrecy. The red 100 still cut through the creases like a trapped pulse. I spread it open on the table, smoothing the wrinkles gently. Beside it, I placed the wedding documents, rows of names, signatures, invoices, confirmations. 2 paper worlds, identical in layout and order, separated only by the life that had shaped them. Kathleen stopped in the doorway, noticing the display. "What's all that?" "A memory," I replied. He glanced from the childhood test to my face. "You're incredibly composed." "I had good teachers." "Your parents?" "No," I said quietly. "Their lessons came from what they failed to do." The night before the ceremony, sleep avoided me. I pressed the last seams of my dress, checked the planner again and again, then set it by the window to wait for sunrise. The city outside barely stirred, just a faint hum beneath the stillness. When dawn finally arrived, the light washed the glass in gold, as if the day itself was preparing for judgment. At 7, Mum called. "Emily's a wreck," she said. "She keeps asking whether you're jealous." "I'm not," I said calmly. "Tell her she has nothing to fear from me." "Oh, sweetheart, you always know how to stay gracious." I disconnected before she heard me whisper, "Not anymore." In the quiet that followed, I felt the next day leaning forward, anticipating. 2 weddings, 1 building, 1 hour. They intended to crush me beneath it. Instead, they had unknowingly built the perfect stage. The morning air carried a metallic stillness, like the breath right before a storm breaks. I arrived early, my dress brushing the marble flooring as hotel staff rushed past with flowers and trays of champagne. 2 signs stood at the entrance. Ballroom A, Reed Nicholas wedding. Ballroom B, Emily and Stephanie. Same date, same floor. Parallel realities vying for the same audience. Our ceremony began at noon. Guests filled the chairs. Executives, Kathleen's co-workers, Mr. Nicholas taking his place near the front, with the quiet gravity of a man who didn't need to speak to be heard. The chandeliers glowed overhead as the string quartet began, each note trembling through the floor. Upstairs, a florist murmured to a waiter, "Didn't half the people drop out of the other wedding?" A shrug. "Heard something about a mandatory company function." By the time we reached the vows, the hall next door had nearly emptied. When I said I do, the room answered with thoughtful, steady applause. It felt like acknowledgement, not obligation. Through the tall windows, I saw Emily in the courtyard. Her gown glittered, but her expression cracked like thin ice. Stephanie paced beside her, phone pressed tight against his ear, agitation radiating from him. 30 minutes later, as our reception began, they walked in. Mum, Dad, Emily, Stephanie, dressed for a celebration that wasn't theirs. They froze as they took in the sight. The executives, the photographers, the Nicholas family gathered in a single radiant constellation. Emily's voice frayed into a whisper. Why are my guests here?" Stephanie's voice faltered. "These are my firm's clients. They were supposed to be... What is happening?" Mr. Nicholas rose from his seat, not loud, but unmistakably commanding. "Curious, isn't it?" he said. 2 weddings, same time, yet only one belongs to my son." His voice carried through the microphone on stage, spilling into every corner of the ballroom. A hush fell instantly, clean and final. Mum's smile collapsed. Dad tried to stammer something coherent. "We didn't realize..." Mr. Nicholas turned to them, voice gentle the way a blade is gentle before it cuts. "You didn't need to realize. Some people only recognize structure when it excludes them." Emily grabbed Stephanie's arm. "Say something." He stepped back, tension tightening his jaw. "You told me this date would embarrass her." Emily's eyes widened. You agreed. Their argument ruptured into the quiet, uneven and raw. Guests watched. Cameras flickered. I didn't move. I stood at the table with my glass, mirroring the posture I had kept the night all of this began. The chandelier light shimmered on the surface of my drink like a thin slice of gold. My planner rested beside the guest book, closed, serene, unmarked by doubt. Mr. Nicholas spoke again, his voice quieter, steady as judgment. Let's keep this day for the people who earned it. With that quiet command, Mr. Nicholas gave a subtle nod. The hotel staff moved with practiced grace, escorting the intruders out, not harshly, but with the kind of courtesy used to remove a dissonant note from a piece meant only for strings and light. When the doors shut behind them, the quartet eased into a new melody, slow and deliberate. The tension in the room pulled apart like dissolving thread, replaced by calm applause. I lifted my glass, not high, just enough to catch my reflection trembling softly in the wine. Kathleen touched my hand. They're gone, he murmured. I know. Somewhere across the corridor, a door slammed. Ballroom B. A muffled shout, then nothing. The noise faded into music and polite conversation, swallowed whole by a room that had chosen its rightful centre. They came expecting to watch me fall, I whispered. Instead, they learned what silence can create. Kathleen's smile was small, sure, and what it can dismantle. Our glasses touched once, not in triumph, but in recognition, equilibrium restored. The rest of the night moved in gentle, controlled waves. No theatrics, no crises, just the measured rhythm of forks against porcelain, laughter that belonged exactly where it echoed. When the reception ended, I paused for a final glance. The chandelier light, the murmuring guests, the polished floor where my reflection stood steady and unbroken. The silence they left behind was flawless. The morning after, the city felt rinsed clean. Pale gold stretched across the skyline, and damp streets glimmered below. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, stirring sugar into my coffee, the spoon tapping out a patient little rhythm. Kathleen was still asleep, his breathing blending with the refrigerator's hum. On the dining table lay my planner, closed at last, its pages slightly swollen from use. Beside it rested our marriage certificate, catching a faint shimmer of light, the same shade as the ink I'd once used to circle that fateful date. For years, I had folded evidence of myself into corners, grades, hopes, small victories no one cared to witness. Yesterday, I finally unfolded all of it. No shouts, no scenes, just a single, precise line drawn through everything that had ever bruised. I thought briefly of Emily. Perhaps she woke to her own kind of quiet. An empty inbox, missed calls, the crack of pride under too much weight. Maybe our parents sat in their living room, replaying the moment the applause stopped belonging to them. I felt no joy imagining it, only distance. The kettle began to whistle. I switched it off before the sound grew sharp. Kathleen entered, hair tousled, eyes still cloudy with sleep. "Morning," he said. "Morning. You okay?" I nodded. Yes, finally. We didn't talk about the wedding. We didn't need to. The day had already closed one chapter cleanly and opened another with quiet clarity. After he left for work, the apartment settled into its soft, familiar rhythm. I opened a window. Cool air drifted in, scented with rain and fresh bread from the bakery below. Far in the distance, a train horn rumbled, low and fading. I sat at the table, opened my planner one last time, and drew a simple line beneath the final entry. Read Nicholas Wedding. Completed. Then I closed it and laid it beside the certificate. The light shifted across both pages until their reflections merged into one pale, steady glow. Silence, I realized, wasn't emptiness. It was possession. In families like mine, power never announces itself. It withdraws. And when it withdraws, the room finally hears what silence truly is. Not a void, a boundary settling into place. A piece that finally has its own volume. If this story stayed with you, stay for the next one. Every silence hides a reckoning. Every reckoning begins with a quiet act of courage. Subscribe, keep listening, and uncover how calm becomes the loudest justice of all. New stories each week, where revenge doesn't scream, it whispers,